loaded Monday show. Goodness gracious, there's so much to go over. College Football Playoff Committee drops the Final Four. That's really what it is. Yeah. That's really what it is. We've got Tim Brando coming on as well. We want to take your calls. We want to hear what you think. Lady Ballers movie.
It was a hit.
Unbelievable.
Smash.
This is the first weekend. We're going to get in that. If you want to call in and talk about that, I knew it was going to be good. I thought people were going to like it. 97% on Rotten Tomatoes after that many reviews.
I think so.
Again, look, I'm a sports guy. I think that's good.
I've got a 97 in my life.
Yeah, me either.
Well, me either. You have.
And then the transfer portal opening up. I mean, we just found out Kyle McCord, Ohio State's quarterback, just hopped in. So look, we got a lot to get to. We're going to try and buzz through it. We're going to preview these playoff matchups, regardless of what you think about who got in. So, you ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Alabama gets the final spot in the college football playoff over Florida State. Tim Brando is going to join us to discuss the committee's decision and the transfer portal opening up. Plus, we're previewing the top bowl matchups that were just announced. And, of course, talking a little Lady Ballers. So, mount up. It's time for Crane & Company. Alabama is better than Florida State when the Seminoles don't have Jordan Travis. I'm not going to argue with you on that point. But what happened in college football yesterday was very bad for the sport overall because it sets the precedent that in reality, if we're going to be honest, the regular season really doesn't matter that much. Winning all your games at a Power 5 school, when you've played some big-time non-conference teams, like 2 teams from the SEC, really is not that big of a deal. Winning your conference championship in a Power 5 conference, well, it doesn't really mean that much at all. It all depends on how healthy your quarterback is. That's what dictates it. Now, if the goal is just to get the 4 most talented overall teams or the 4 biggest brands into the playoff, then let's not even play a regular season. Why are we wasting our time? Player safety. Let's just combine the recruiting rankings and the NFL draft projections for the preseason and take the 4 top teams the computer spits out. Let's just do that. Saves everybody a lot of time. The fact is, results have to matter from the whole season, not just a portion of it. If anybody out there can explain to me how if Florida State is so bad now without Jordan Travis, then how in the hell did the committee end up still ranking them in front of 1-loss Georgia and Ohio State? If they're good enough to be ranked ahead of those 2, then certainly they're still good enough to be ranked ahead of Alabama, right? But see, that would mean the rankings have a sense of order, but they don't. Let's not beat around the bush anymore. Boo Corrigan can't explain it well because it goes against where the committee continuously had Florida State ranked even down the stretch. And deep down, they know what they did. You're not going against Greg Sankey and Nick Saban. I'll tell you what happens if Jalen Milroe gets hurt in bowl practice and can't play in the game? Does Georgia get to take Alabama's spot? Right? If we're going to talk about the caveats of injuries, that should happen. There were multiple teams that would have been favored over TCU last year. And don't forget, TCU had 1 less loss than Alabama. And they lost their conference championship game and got in. And that team beat Michigan. Everybody talks about the ass beating that took place in the national championship, but forgot that TCU team beat Michigan. In reality, Danny Cannell's right. It's an invitational now. But the main reason I think the committee did it, and they're able to get away with it, is this is the last year of the 4-team playoff. Not that there won't be arguments when we get to 12, but none of those arguments will involve an undefeated Power 5 conference champion. I do want to say congrats to Alabama. The players, the coach, they had nothing to do with this. They should take advantage of it. I don't blame them. But I feel awful for the Florida State players and coaches who basically played a whole season for absolutely no reason at all. Bringing my co-host, former Michigan quarterback, got to be happy about where Michigan is. I know when they drew Alabama, that they didn't look exactly thrilled about it. We're going to talk about that. David Cohn, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crane. Guys, it's something that's been talked about. We need to talk about it. We're going to talk about it with Tim Brando when we get him on here, and we want to know what you think. But, David, I think what happened yesterday was wrong. I think we've lost. I think we took power over integrity. That's what I think happened. And I think Dan Mullen said it fantastically yesterday. This Alabama team needed a miracle to beat an Auburn team that got their pants pulled down by New Mexico State at home. And yet we want to sit here and act like a Florida State double-digit win over Florida on the road doesn't matter. You know, a Florida State double-digit win in the conference championship game against a 10-2 team, it doesn't matter. Hey, you know what they did. If you understand college football, you know what they did.
Well, I didn't hear Dan Mullen say that, but I thought you made all the right points here. I mean, here's how I'm feeling right now. College football is an unserious sport. And I hate to say that because it's my favorite. But, I mean, anytime you have a situation where an unbeaten conference champ, you know, doesn't even have a path to win the championship, like, that's unserious. And we've seen it with every iteration of college football. This isn't just a prisoner of the moment situation. We saw it pre-BCS. We saw it in the BCS era. We've seen it now with the college football playoff. I mean, anytime you're having to resort to phrases like, well, we got to make sure we get the 4 best teams, not the 4 most deserving teams, or, well, who do you think Vegas would have favored in these games? You've already lost. Like, that's not a serious sport. You never see that in the NFL or in Major League Baseball. And I want to make it clear, I do not blame the committee. Okay. Have they been wildly inconsistent for the past month? Yes, they have. Jordan Travis injured his leg weeks ago, and yet Florida State was ranked ahead of the one-loss team. So we already knew that he was going to be out. And then to say, well, at the last moment, Florida State is not as good as Texas or Alabama, but somehow they're still better than Georgia and Ohio State. So we rank them 5. I don't understand that. Just stick to what you're saying, because everyone can get behind the fact they lost their starting quarterback. Move them back to 15, for God's sakes. But I don't blame the committee. They actually did what they had to do, right? They fell on their sword, they played the villain role, and they gave us a more compelling matchup. That much is true. Alabama's a top team. It's going to be a better playoff matchup with Alabama and Michigan than I think it would have been with Florida State with either a backup or possibly a third-string quarterback. You know, this much we know. But I blame the selection process. I mean, anytime you're going to get a committee of bureaucrats together and say, let's let this group of people determine who the champions are for our sport, that is a recipe for disaster. How do we not already know that? Now, I'm hopeful that most of these issues will be solved when we move to a 12-team playoff, even though, you know, look, it's not the number, it's not the expansion that I'm most excited about. It's the objective metrics, like league champs, wild cards, all the things that all other serious sports do. Here's what I would do. Take all of the power and pressure off of any sort of committee and put it on the conferences. Let the conferences send who they want to represent. If you want to send your league champ, like Alabama, send your league champ to represent you in the postseason. If you want to send the team that had the best season but didn't win the league, like TCU last year, or in some instances Ohio State, well then send them and put it on the leagues. But until we get to something like that, until we have more leadership when it comes to the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness and collectives, college football is an unserious sport.
I agree with you 100%. And again, I think if we had the 14 playoff for like the next 5 years, they wouldn't have done this. They'd have put Florida State in because this sets a precedent. It does, that the regular season doesn't matter. You can say what you want. You talk about the criteria, and Blaine, obviously, I want to know what you think about it. I love when people bring up the criteria and say, oh, well, there's a rule in there that says if a player's injured, that needs to be a factor. Okay. So does that factor outweigh the conference champion factor? Does that factor just override every other factor? You can't sit here and talk about, oh, well, there's all these factors. Here's one factor. There it is. That's it. Decision made. No, it is a combination of all those factors. But we get to the 12-team playoff, we'll be arguing over, you know, the 11th team, the 12th team, whatever.
Hopefully.
But
hopefully.
I hope so.
But that argument won't involve an undefeated Power 5 conference champion. That's my whole point. This isn't an argument over Liberty getting in with a Group of 5 schedule. We're talking about an undefeated Power 5 team that scheduled 2 SEC teams in the non-conference and beat both of them and handled their business. We won't be arguing about that anymore because regardless of injury, they would be in. So my question is, if Jalen Milroe would have got hurt in the first quarter of the Georgia game and Alabama would have found a way to win because Georgia didn't play good, would Alabama have been left out?
Well, I mean, that would come down to the backup quarterback in the eye test.
We've seen the eye test. They're trash.
But you asked me a question, and that would be the answer. I mean, your quarterback gets hurt, and it all comes down to the criteria. These are the reason these guys are here. This is their job, right? They dropped the criteria before. And if we'd had a problem with it, we should have done something when it came out, all right? It's going to be subjective. This is what they're supposed to do. They said, all right, if key players get hurt, whether that's during the season or in the postseason, they were factored that into the decision that they made. And that's what they did. This isn't about everything that Florida State did was remarkable. I think Florida State should get in. I do. I think so. But I understand what the committee did because they put it in the criteria, right? And the Florida State, we can all sit here and say that Florida State is not the same team without Jordan Travis, especially on offense. It's just not the same. I do agree with you. Alabama will be a lot better game. I think if anything, you look at this, you got to remember what college football is now. College football is a business, all right? It is a business. This committee has gotten it wrong multiple times in multiple weeks, but we sit up here and then complain when they got it wrong again. Who's surprised? Not me. You were screwed either way in this situation, but they have something they can fall on, and that is in the criteria.
No, again, that's one part of the criteria. Can we stop acting like in the criteria it says, by the way, none of the other factors or criteria matters if somebody gets hurt? That's not what it says. You're misconstruing the truth. That's one factor in all of the criteria. It's not, here's this conference champ, overall record strength, the record strength of schedule. But, P.S., none of that matters if the quarterback gets hurt. That's not what it says. It is one of the few factors. They didn't treat it like one of the few factors. They treated it like the only factor. And I do understand why they did it. Of course I understand why they did it. Alabama's in the SEC. Greg Sankey runs college football. Alabama and Michigan is going to be a bigger brand matchup and a bigger money maker and TV ratings maker than the Florida State game would have been, going in there with a quarterback when a lot of people thought they'd be a lame duck team, which we don't know. A lot of people thought TCU was going to get destroyed by Michigan, and they beat them. My problem is, deep down, you said it yourself, you thought Florida State should be in. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that? Because it's the right thing to do. Because you understand the sport. You understand what we thought college football was about. But this just goes to prove it even more, and we're not naive. It's $1 billion industry. Mm-hmm. Look at these TV contracts. This is about, just like every other aspect of life, if you have the most money and you have the most power, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. This is the mayor's kid being allowed to start at shortstop because he's the mayor's kid. That's exactly what it is, and let's not pretend like it's not.
One thing about that, though, is the SEC does it deliver in these playoffs. Right?
Without a doubt.
That's one of the things where it's like when people say, how could you possibly leave the SEC out when all they do is win when they get these moments? This one is particularly tough because, like I said yesterday, it's one of those situations where the national landscape actually worked against Alabama and the SEC, and they still got the benefit of the doubt. I told you guys yesterday it was probably a 50% chance that they slid Alabama up. Now, before the committee actually made their selection process, I saw that it was officially 42%. Was what Vegas had.
And FanDuel started putting odds on Bama.
Really, guys? We're all just kidding ourselves. It was always 100%.
For sure.
It was always 100%. There was never going to be a situation where Alabama, who just beat the number one team in the country, one of the best wins of the season, got left out. It just wasn't going to happen. And if Florida State had Jordan Travis, they would have left Florida State in there, and they would have put Alabama over Texas and ignored the head-to-head earlier in the season, and that's what we would be upset about today. But the question I have on the injury, and this was going around yesterday, I want to ask both of you this. Would it behoove Florida State to just lie about Jordan Travis's injury and say it looked like it was broken, but really he's week to week and we think he'll be...
What do you mean you can't?
He broke his leg on live television.
What do you... Look, hey,
he broke his leg. I get what you're saying, but you're not getting away with that.
We were very cautious.
He shattered his leg.
Hold on. You said you're not getting away with it. They tricked us about Cam Rising for 7 weeks.
That is true.
Okay, but I didn't watch Cam Rising break his leg.
I watched Cam Rising's knee spontaneously combust on television.
Okay, guys, just hypothetically.
Okay, no, hypothetically, I get it, but they would understand what Jordan Travis did against North Alabama or North Texas, whoever the hell it was.
Can't prove it.
His ankle was facing the other way.
He's ahead of schedule.
I get it. No, I get it. It's another thing. Dude, that's funny you bring up Aaron Rodgers. Look how the Jets changed when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. You know, this was a significant injury. You saw the change. And we can go through all the criteria. That's
Wait,
fine.
the Jets won all their games after Aaron Rodgers got hurt?
No, that's what he's saying. Like, the Zach Wilson was a big impact.
Yeah, he was, but Florida State won all their games.
Oh, yeah.
The Jets are terrible.
But you see, you guys, we can see the drop-off in Florida State's football team. That's what I'm saying. If we're talking about criteria, Alabama checks most of the criteria boxes. I mean, 5th in strength of schedule. Florida State's 55th. Like, Alabama has a lot
Florida State beat LSU worse than Alabama did. Alabama barely beat an Auburn team that's terrible. Barely beat a USF team.
We always say this about the Auburn game. Throw out the records, right?
No. See, here's the deal. This is where you screw up. That's in the criteria, right? In your beautiful criteria. A score with common opponents. That's in your beautiful criteria.
You just brought up the criteria. Alabama has a 5th strength of schedule. Florida State has a 55th strength of schedule.
Look at the common opponents. Look at the common opponents, who they played.
Okay.
Bro, again, if everything is even, you're right. If Alabama and Florida State were undefeated and we were comparing 2 undefeated teams, I'm with you. We're not doing that. Stop pretending like we're doing that. Florida State is undefeated. That is not even. Why did TCU get in over Alabama last year? They had 1 less loss. Bama had 2 losses. TCU had 1 loss after they lost the conference championship game, didn't even win their conference championship, had 1 less loss to Alabama, and they still got in. With a what?
But what makes it
with a backup quarterback.
What makes it tougher, though, is that Florida State went out of their way to schedule really tough games. I mean, the FSU-LSU opening game was like the marquee matchup, and we said all season, like, that could be a game that either keeps someone out of the playoff or propels them into it. Because I had so many Alabama fans yesterday. I mean, even members of my wife's family texted me that Florida State plays nobody. I'm like, y'all have a common opponent that Florida State beat worse than y'all. Don't come at me about Florida State plays no one. If you really want Alabama in the playoff, just use that their quarterback got injured. That's the only thing that you have to say is like, their quarterback got injured. I'm sorry. It really is tough. You got to keep them out, put Alabama in, and it's a more compelling playoff. That's the only argument. And I think it's a legit one because the playoff will be better for it. I just hate to see it.
I'd see it because it sets a bad precedent. But again, we're going away from the 4 team. So I think they got an opportunity to do it.
That you voted against expanding the playoff this year.
Not just the ACC, it was the whole alliance, right?
Yeah, well, if I'm Florida State, if I'm the ACC commissioner, this is the worst thing that could have happened. If I'm Florida State and them, I'm getting out. I'm gone. Yeah. I'm gone. We can go undefeated in this conference, not get in the national championship game. This would never happen in the SEC. Would never happen. You would never see that happen. But speaking about 100%, I know what is 100% delicious, and that's all the incredible meat over at Good Ranchers. What do green eggs and your Christmas dinner have in common? They both need ham to be complete, and they're going absolutely ham over at Good Ranchers. All right, they've got spiral cut heritage pork masterpiece from Good Ranchers. All right, for Christmas.
Spiral cut.
Spiral cut. How about that? Let's get it. Yes, nothing like a good spiral. You know more about that than anybody. It's not the kind of ham that'll steal the show at your family. It's the kind of ham that'll steal the show with your family gathering. And guess what? You get it free with any Good Ranchers subscription. That's a whopping $99 value that you get for free in your first order. So head on over to goodranchers.com and subscribe today with our code BOOSTER, BOOSTER, to claim your free limited stock holiday ham before they sell out. But act fast. This offer will not last forever. You need to order before December 11th for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. Head to goodranchers.com. Use our code BOOSTER, BOOSTER, when you subscribe to get your free 10-pound holiday ham. Don't settle for the same old holiday fare. Elevate your feast with Good Ranchers this year. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Winners are just people who eat ham from Good Ranchers.
Wow.
Also, we're going to put our link for our hoodie, and we got some Lady Ballers merch coming. Yeah, we got some coming down the pipe, but we got a great hoodie. We got some candles. Helps out the show a ton. We've obviously had a lot of growth since this movie launched, but it helps if you buy the hoodie as well. We really appreciate it. All right, let's get to the chat.
Let's go to Shane Bentley with a $10 donation. Appreciate it, Shane. He says, my whole issue is that if Bama was in the exact same position as FSU, you know that Saban would be pouting big time. If FSU doesn't get in, then why put Cincinnati in 2 years ago? This whole thing is dumb.
I agree. But listen, I will not blame Nick Saban for politicking for his team. Not at all. And just like I wouldn't blame Kirby Smart, just like I won't blame Mike Norvell. You should all politic for your team. But make no mistake, if the roles were reversed and Alabama's quarterback got hurt and they found a way to beat Auburn and then found a way to beat Georgia, there's no way in hell they would leave Alabama out of this playoff if they were undefeated. Just remember that.
Yep.
Let's get a Feeling Dangerous 113. I'm feeling dangerous myself, brother. $20 donation. The committee reminded me why I don't get invested in Power 5 college football. It's a joke. They listen to the SEC stands, mad about TCU and UC getting in, even though there's no argument put any other team the past.
That's what I'm talking about.
Years.
That's when I say it's not a serious sport. Who said that?
He's feeling dangerous. 113.
That's what I'm talking about. There's people like that who we could get on board with loving college football, right? But they see stuff like this and they say, you know what? No, it's just not serious enough. I'll watch the NFL or I'll watch soccer or I'll watch something else.
At least it's a meritocracy. At least it's a meritocracy in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get to play it out. That's what's going to be nice about the 12-team playoff. That's what's fantastic about the NCAA basketball tournament. No, what you have is you have a bunch of rich lawyers and athletic directors that sit in a room that understand what will make the most money. We talk about player safety. Why are we playing 12 games? Why are we putting these guys in harm's way for 12 games? Just put Bama in the playoff every year, right? Just throw Georgia in there, throw Ohio State and Michigan. Let's call it a day. Why are we wasting our time? It's a waste of time. It is unsafe for the players to play the regular season.
Let's go to New York Noel with a $5 donation. I think I know where this one's going. There are only 2 times in history of the playoff when an undefeated Power 5 team was ranked lower than 2 one-loss teams. That was 2014 and 2023. And both those times, it was Florida State University.
Wow.
Fun fact right there. Let's go to 12 Gauge in with a $10 donation. Knowles fan here. If we didn't pass the eye test, which is what it seems to be the criteria now, they should have dropped us lower after Travis broke his leg.
Yep.
It gave us no hope, and that's what hurt.
Again, it just goes to show it's a TV show, man. It's a TV show. It's just like The Golden Bachelor, except it sucks a little bit less. Like, just, it's the truth. We've been saying it. We've been sitting here and telling you what's going to happen. Like, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out. It's just, they put it right out there in front of you. You see it. And you know what? We're going to get to Bama, Michigan in a second. It's going to be a hell of a matchup. We're going to break it down like it's the last game on the earth. But I want y'all to know, hey, no more SEC homer. I don't want to hear that ever again. I'm up here like Jon Snow standing against it. Well, I mean, I'm going with Kirk Herbstreit and them are swinging the SEC sword, and I'm over here on the other side. It's true. Like Freaky Friday. I feel like Lindsay Lohan, except not on crack.
And what's interesting, too, is with the Michigan matchup and the Alabama matchup, the way that I had it break down is if Florida State's undefeated, they go to 3. I had Texas at 4,
for sure.
Right? Because that's the first one-loss team in.
Texas the winner in all this.
Honestly, for Michigan, I think it's a better draw to play Alabama than Texas than Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers in the first round, who beat Alabama by 10. So
we'll get into that.
Like, I mean,
I got a theory on that. I want to ask you about.
Neither one is the matchup you would have rather had with Florida State. I get it. But
all right, let's go ahead and get in this Alabama-Michigan game.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead and get in this.
Rose Bowl.
Can we pull up the spread right now?
Yep.
What it is?
It's 1.5, I believe.
It's 1.5 Michigan.
Correct.
I'm telling you right now.
3, didn't it?
I'm telling you right now. I feel like this is worst case scenario for Michigan. I feel like this is the worst thing that could have happened. As the 1 seed, but David, then it goes back to that thinking. We always talk about this during the NCAA basketball tournament. Would you rather go ahead and play the 1 seed in the second round or the Sweet 16 and play them then as opposed to waiting to the Final Four, the Elite Eight? Do you want to get the tough team out of the way, right? I know Texas beat Alabama. I think we got to look at Texas in a different light, obviously, especially with the way they played against Oklahoma State, seeing defensively them kind of figure it out. Washington, I think, is sneaky because nobody's talking about them really. We're talking about everything else. But when I look at this Alabama-Michigan matchup, I do feel like Alabama is physical enough to hang in there and have a 12-round fight with Michigan up front. But I think they're more athletic. You look at Ohio State, right? I think there's some similarities there. But where's the difference? It's at quarterback with Jalen Milroe and what he can do with his legs. Georgia was able to corral him somewhat, but we did see times where he could extend the play then, make plays. We saw it in the red zone for a touchdown. We saw the quarterback design run game. I feel like Alabama, in my opinion right now, has the edge over Michigan. You put a gun to my head right now, I'm taking Alabama over Michigan. Now, what I think it will come down to, Alabama defensively in the back end, I think is better than what Michigan has out wide. Can Michigan smush Alabama up front like they've done everybody else? We talk about styles make fights. Michigan styles, more methodical, play action. I know J.J. McCarthy can extend the play, but Alabama's got cats running around on defense that, similar to Ohio State, he's not going to be an elite runner against these guys. I feel right now that Alabama has a little bit of the, well, we don't belong here and everybody's going against us, whatever. And I just go back to that Michigan reaction when they saw that they were playing Alabama. And if I don't know if we got that, but you could just feel when they saw that, like Blaine says all the time, we hear people talk about, we want Bama. You see Colorado after starting out 2-0 after beating nobody. We want Bama. deep down, no, you don't.
I
really
thought it
don't.
Was an overreaction to that video. I thought it was just everybody as college football fans was shocked that Florida State got hosed like that, and then you heard people
a little bit
start
of both.
clapping. I just thought, honestly, I don't care. This is an unbelievable matchup. Michigan, Alabama in the Rose Bowl, in the granddaddy of them all. Like, this is fantastic. And it really is going to be a more compelling football game than what would have been otherwise. I think Michigan should embrace playing Alabama early, just like you said. Like, go ahead and get this out of the way. Like, do you really want to run through, like, the college football playoff in the 1 year where you have your best team and there was no SEC team?
Yeah.
Like, that is more of an asterisk than anything else that's happened throughout the season as far as I'm concerned. So, look, when you talk about this matchup, you have to start with Nick Saban and with Jim Harbaugh. Given Nick Saban's incredible track record in the postseason compared to Jim Harbaugh's really like lackluster track record in the postseason, 1-5 or 1-6 in December, something like that. Like, obviously, you have to give the edge to Alabama just writ large before you even start dissecting rosters and any of that kind of stuff, right? But when you look, down ballot on the coaching staff and within the rosters, this is going to be a fascinating football game. I think Jesse Minter, Michigan's defensive coordinator, is one of the best in the country. I think Michigan wins that against Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator on Alabama side. Now, of course, Jalen Milroe is the X factor. So can you pressure him? Can you get him on the ground without overrushing him, without giving up running lanes, right? Can you force him to stand in the pocket and make throws down the field? Because I think Michigan's secondary has been the most improved aspect of the team this year. Mike Sanderson is one of the best players in the country. Now, I'm wondering if Will Johnson's going to come back healthy. If Will Johnson, if he gives you, because he's the best corner on the team to me, then that's going to give you a nice edge against Bond and Burton and some of these great wide receivers that Alabama had. I'm looking at the tight end too. Michigan uses tight end so well. Yeah. Colston, Loveland, that's an area where you can win if Alabama's great lockdown corners, really take over the game like that. And then from the other aspect of it, when you talk about Nick Saban and Kevin Steele, Alabama's DC and all that, you have to give them an edge as well against Sharon Moore, who's been incredible this whole season. But I don't know, I'm just starting to see more and more that this could be a defensive matchup. I don't think either team is going to be able to have long, sustained drives just running the football. They're not just going to be able to turn around, hand the ball off, and go 12 plays and score touchdowns. They're going to have to mix it up. They're going to have to pitch backwards. This goes for both teams. And when you do that, you open up opportunities for quarterbacks to make mistakes. Jalen Milroe early in the season showed you that he will make mistakes and cost Alabama the football games. He hasn't showed that late. J.J. McCarthy later in the season showed, hey, I'll make some mistakes, but when it comes, crunch time, I make the plays that are necessary to win. That's how I see it going.
What's the over-under?
The over-under
46.
46. So you're looking...
I think it plays out a lot like Alabama-Georgia played out.
Yeah, right. That's the feeling I get too.
So there's some similarities there, right?
This game, it's just whichever quarterback makes the least mistakes, I think, is going to have to do a lot. Whoever wins this game, and which quarterback has a better day on the ground. When you face defenses like this, and that's one thing Alabama didn't have to worry about when it came to Georgia. No one's worried about Carson Beck taking off. I mean, he had a couple plays here and there that he ran on third down, not design runs. But I think this Alabama team changed, and kudos to the coaching staff, and we were screaming it up here for multiple weeks when they started giving Milroe the chance with quarterback design runs. All right? That is so hard for a defense to keep up with another hat in the box, but I think Michigan could do the same. You go back to that Iron Bowl game, right, when Auburn ran for 250-plus on this Alabama team. You had to worry about who? You had to worry about Peyton Thorne taking off if you're Alabama. J.J. McCarthy needs to hurt Alabama with his feet. And it's going to be hard for both teams to get a lot of yards between the tackles. Both these defenses are phenomenal in the front side, but especially Michigan, they have one of the best D tackles in the country. So which quarterback, who can stay on schedule, who makes the least mistakes, and which quarterback, especially on third down, can be that explosive play, can have that it factor. This is a game of which quarterback has the bigger it factor in this game, Jalen Milroe or J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, Alabama's secondary tackles really well. Can anybody get explosive plays that when you get to that second level, be able to go score the ball? Because I think in the red zone, it's going to be slow moving, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be slow moving. If you're Alabama, your improvisational plays and methodology and ideology ended up winning the day over Georgia, who was just on schedule, on time, method actor, Daniel Day-Lewis. That's going to be interesting to see. The phone lines are opening up here in about 15 minutes. But what else is opening up? holiday prepping. And we know it's a pain for some of you guys. It always feels like there isn't just enough time in the day. And by some of you, I mean all of us. And some people are just incredibly hard to shop for. Well, Black Rifle Coffee, they're here to keep you mission-focused this holiday. Their December coffee of the month is Costa Rican Arabica coffee.
Yeah.
It's good.
That sound right? Sound
Yes.
good? Okay.
I'd like to try it.
Struggle with that word. It delivers tasting notes of chocolate, citrus, and maple. Black Rifle Coffee is a veteran-founded coffee company that's operated by principled men and women who honor those who protect, defend, and support our country. So stop running out of coffee. Sign up for a coffee club subscription at Black Rifle Coffee, delivered straight to your door on a schedule. Go to blackriflecoffee.com. Use our promo code BOOSTER, BOOSTER, at checkout for 10% off your one-time purchase or first coffee club order. That's blackriflecoffee.com. Promo code BOOSTER for 10% off. You can find it in grocery and convenience stores near you. But we all know you want to go to blackriflecoffee.com, use that promo code BOOSTER, and help out everybody involved in the situation. All right, let's get to Texas and Washington really quickly. Blaine, Booster Club, what up?
Let's go to Colson Duggins with the $5 donation. Appreciate it, Coles. Guys, Bama beat Georgia. It's a big enough feat to overcome one loss. FSU's undefeated season just isn't that impressive. FSU didn't play Georgia, and that's it. The best 4 teams are in.
That's not the best argument.
That's not
Use
the best argument.
quarterback got injured argument.
Like that's not it.
Because y'all have a common opponent.
Yeah.
Beat them worse than y'all did.
And Florida State beat them worse. Like, see, that's the problem. Like, on the surface, you just feel like, oh, this, that, the other. Then you actually look into it, and you're like, wait, this doesn't add up. But you got to use the quarterback injury argument.
But I've had to remind myself over the past 24 hours when a lot of people have been reaching out, talking about their team and why they should make it in. I have to remind myself that most people only watch their team play.
For sure. Yeah. That's exactly right.
No, and not everyone's sitting around an 8-box quad box like we are, watching every single team play throughout the season. So, yeah, like you only watch your team play. You think they're the best.
And you're going to be biased.
Everyone else is
toward
terrible.
your team's situation.
100%.
Right? If you're a Bama fan, of course, you're going to root for Bama. If you're a Florida State fan, of course you're going to be pissed.
Let's go to Michael Wallace with a $10 donation. Appreciate it, Mike. The committee got it right. If FSU current quarterback played a full season, would they be close to being undefeated? No. Anybody they would have played would have crushed them.
But whoa. They just beat Florida and they just beat Louisville with that backup quarterback. Actually, they beat Louisville with a third-string quarterback, the same Louisville that beat Notre Dame, right? That everybody was just gassing up Ohio State for beating. If you want to go down this road, if FSU had lost a game, moot point. We're not even arguing this.
No.
FSU not only didn't lose a game with the backup quarterback, they won both of them, all 3 of them, by double digits.
I wonder how much of this had to do with Rodemaker's injury. Because remember, the last thing in the committee's mind was the horrific ACC championship game with Florida State's third-string quarterback. But Tate Rodemaker would have been back for the playoff.
He would have been back for the playoff.
But
yeah.
I wonder how much of that had to do with it. I just still feel like it was.
Well, you know who I hate it for? I hate
inevitable.
I hate it for these backup quarterbacks. Like, what the hell? Brock Glenn's a freshman. Like, you got him out there playing. So it's his fault? It's Brock Glenn's fault?
I hate it for Jordan Travis.
I hate it for the players that busted their ass.
The amount of weight
that's what I hate it for.
Shoulders.
That's what I hate
this year, and you can't help but have the feeling you let the whole team down. It's your fault that you broke your leg, but it's not. I promise you that. So to Josh Hall with the $20 donation. Appreciate it, Josh, because I'm an Alabama fan and I feel terrible for Florida State, but the committee wants close games like they were last year, semifinal, and want better matchups for viewership. It is a show at the end of the day.
I can get behind everything about that he just said.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's again, if you're an Alabama fan, like, I totally understand. Like, I'd be happy if it was Auburn. I'd be happy that Auburn was in there.
And what's going to make it worse is they'll likely just go win the championship.
Alabama?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, no. Like Georgia will kill Florida State, right? And then Alabama will go win the national championship.
It's yeah, and they'll be like, here, see, told you, whatever. All right, Washington, Texas, Dave, what do you think?
I love this matchup, man. This is an exciting one. The more I've watched Texas down the stretch, the more I just think they are a complete football team like we saw from them earlier in the season. And then Washington, I mean, look, I had them in the college football playoff at the beginning of the year. I thought the only game they would drop was to USC. Man, they go unbeaten too. What's really interesting about this is Texas front seven and that run defense is so strong, right? But they've shown that they can be susceptible to the big plays down the field. Washington doesn't even want to run the ball, really.
No.
They have 3 NFL wide receivers and an NFL quarterback.
Washington thinks running the balls for ugly.
We're past a run over here at Washington. Like, we'll throw the ball all over the yard with Romo Dunze and McMillan and Polk and Michael Penix Jr. I think he throws the prettiest ball in the country, to be honest. So I'm really fascinated to see, like, how does Texas's defense respond to the style that Washington wants to play? And then on the other side of the ball, I'm watching Steve Sarkisian dial up plays that just, it blows me away as someone who studies it. Quinn Ewers looks as comfortable in the pocket as he's ever looked. Oklahoma State couldn't stop them at all in the conference championship game. So both of these offenses, I don't know, what's the over-under right now?
Yeah, I didn't know the spread and over-under.
64.5. I mean,
over.
Give me the over.
Yeah, what's the spread?
Spread is 4, Texas.
I'm telling you right now, this, and we always have that saying, I had a very, very smart man that's been involved in high-level college sports gambling for a long time say, if you have 2 explosive offenses, take the under and vice versa. It's going to be very, very hard for me to take the under 64.5 with what I just saw from Texas's offense. I know Oklahoma State's defense isn't great. Washington's defense is good. That's the reason they're here, right? Because it gave them balance. They weren't just a one-trick pony with a great offense and just trying to outscore everybody. They could win rock fights. But these 2 offenses are operating at such high levels right now. I think you could play good on defense and this over still hit.
It's funny you say it because now I'm thinking about it. I think this game could play out a lot like Washington-Oregon did this second time because Oregon is a lot like Texas in terms of their balance and their defense. I mean, that game was, 34-31?
Yeah. So that would hit
65
the over.
Right there on the hook.
Hit the over.
Yeah.
I just, when I look at Penix and the thing that makes it so tough, and there's a lot of guys with big arms. We looked at Joe Milton, big arm. But when you have the combination of big arm and feel, when you can make those nuanced throws and you can use the whole field and actually be able to throw from hash to underneath the numbers on the other side, your route combinations can encompass the whole field. You make the defense defend every single blade of grass. Washington doesn't just, their trick is they don't just stretch you vertically. That's what you think. Texas stretches you vertically a lot. Sark is taking shots on that third layer, that deep layer, to open up and give space on that underneath. Washington will say, all right, we'll stretch you vertically some, but we're going to stretch you laterally. We're going to adjust our splits. We're not afraid to throw it from one side of the field all the way to the other side of the field because Michael Penix has an absolute hose, an absolute cannon, an absolute howitzer. The dude can make every single throw. Whole shot versus cover 2, he laughs at it. He eats it for breakfast. The 9 route, laughs at it. The lollipop fade, he can throw it. Fit the slant in there, take some off of it on the dig, he can do it. Washington makes you defend every blade of grass. Texas makes you defend every blade of grass in a different way. I think Texas gives you more eye candy. That's what I love watching with Sarkisian.
Yeah.
It's the pre-snap movement. It's the pre-snap motion because he's playing a game of I'm going to find out. He's like that little redheaded chick in Wedding Crashers. Like when she looks at Vince Vaughn and he's like, I'll never leave. He said, I find you. Oh, he'll find you. And he'll find you with your pants down and not in a good way.
They did get married, didn't they?
Got married.
Yeah, 100%. This game is just, what's the weakness on Texas's defense?
Secondary.
They're secondary. They've been exploited before. The front seven's great. Michael Penix and them are going to come out here and throw the ball as many times.
They may throw it 65 times.
As many times. They're not winning. They're not going to win between the tackles. The only thing they need to do is pass block, right? Who can get to who? I don't think Washington's going to be able to get to Quinn. That offensive line for Texas is for real.
Bama ain't getting there. Washington ain't
for
getting there.
real, buddy. So Texas right now can do what? They can control the line of scrimmage, and they can control the time of possession. I'm going to play a game. I'm going to keep it out of Michael Penix's hands as long as I can so they can start it with the one. Xavier Worthy is healthy. He was in the boot after that game, but X-rays came back negative,
Really?
so he will.
You got a month.
He will be ready for this game. The more I think about it, I go with the team that can turn around and hand the ball off and get 4 to 5 to 6 yards. But what scares me is Washington's been that team this year that's been doubted, right? Well, I don't know if they'll beat Oregon, this and that. They're scary, and they're scary good. Michael Penix is playing at a high level. Odunze is a top 2 receiver in college football right now. This is going to be a hell of a football game, guys.
It is.
This might be, people think Bama, Michigan is going to be good, which it will. But this game, Texas and Washington, might be the best one.
Well, and I want to put Washington in the same category. Because I'm taking the over. I'm going to see if this gets bet down a little bit. I'm going to see if it goes down to 3.5. That way I can buy it down to 2.5. I want to see which way it goes. Or if it goes up to 7, I may take Washington. I'm going to go ahead and jump on the over right now. But here's what I will say. I think Texas got the best draw at anybody. You say, Jake, why? Why do you say Texas, not Washington? Well, for this reason. 1, you're Texas. You had 1 loss. You don't have to play the number 1 team. You don't have to play Michigan, right? And Alabama got in. You don't have to play them either. Why is that important? Yeah, you beat them, but you know what's harder than beating a good team once? Beating them twice. Now, you may see them in the Natty. Well, that's fine. That's the Natty. We'll settle it then. But you don't catch them before. I think Texas ended up being the biggest winner out of all this in the Final Four. Because you dodged the team that you played before. You dodged the team that's going to have that motivation to go out there and beat you after what you did to them on their home field and almost keeping them out of the playoff. And you don't run into what we believe is the best team in the country right now that Georgia's out of it, in Michigan, right? And I know people will argue Bama's the best team in the country, whatever, that's fine. But Michigan is number 1. You avoid the number 1 team, and you avoid the team that you played during the regular season that you beat that has double the motivation to beat you. I think Texas ended up getting...
That's interesting.
Pun intended, Texas had the best draw.
I love that, and it gets me thinking about last year because I've had so many Michigan buddies reach out to me saying, man, the one time that we get the number 1 seed, we would have to play Alabama. I get it. It's a tough draw. But
I wanted Georgia.
But don't forget, last year, you were in the other situation. Right? Like you drew TCU last year and you lost. And Georgia's sitting there as the number 1 seed and they had to play the Buckeyes. And that game went down to the stretch. So look, that's just how it
That's a great point, David.
Like Georgia got the worst draw last year as the number 1 seed. Michigan that happened. Look, if you're the real deal, go beat everybody.
Yeah, y'all have that beat Georgia practice or beat Georgia week.
Practice.
You're going to basically go play Georgia.
You switch it to Bama.
That's what you're doing.
If you're the
it's
real
Spider-Man
deal,
GIF.
go win the game.
Bama, Georgia, Spider-Man GIF pointing at each other. It's basically the same thing. Same, but different.
Well, it's like, hey, oh wow, I got root beer. Oh no, I got Mr. Pibb, right? I wanted Mr. Pibb. I got Mr. Pibb 0 sugar. Basically, pretty much the same thing.
Sugar. I'd love to play Mr. Pibb.
You hate on root beer like that?
Huh?
Root beer is the same thing as Mr. Pibb.
No. I said root beer and then I changed it to Mr. Pibb. All right, who we all know is the exiled brother of Dr. Pepper.
He did get exiled.
He did get exiled. But some guy that hasn't been exiled, you can catch him all over the television and the sports world, is our good friend, the Hall of Famer, the Louisiana megaphone. I just came up with that.
That's awesome, actually.
Timmy B, a.k.a. him, Brando. Tim, what's up, man?
You got the mouth that roared when he's ready to go. How are you today?
Well, Tim, listen, I know you probably don't have a lot of feelings on the college football playoff selections.
Who, me?
I know you probably just barely caught it, whatever. But just your thoughts. I think you're probably in line with what 2/3 of this of the lady ballers are in line with here.
Well, let's begin with a couple of things, okay? Let's begin with just a couple of things. There was a time in my life, and maybe even in my career, okay, where I really cared what others thought. I don't anymore. I really don't, okay? When it comes to college football, I'm going to say what I see and say what I think. And I will always offer up context to support whatever my thoughts are, okay? So I'm on with you because you give me a bit of a platform, and thank you for that. But I'm not on ad nauseum all day and all night, okay, as was the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference all day Friday and all day Saturday. And what I felt was really contrived, well-formatted and plotted television to not just make a case for Alabama were they to win, but for both of his SEC teams to get in. Okay, So I don't nearly make the rounds or do as good of a job, with the platform given me as he does with the platform given him. So bravo, okay, to Commissioner Sankey. Did anyone hear the question asked of him yesterday by anyone, or for that matter on Friday with McAfee or anybody else? Hey, do you think with these two teams maybe possibly being on the outside looking in, that having that 9th game in the conference this year might have made a difference? Did you ever hear that? Was that question ever asked by anyone?
I didn't hear it.
No. It was like sitting in on a Joe Biden press conference. Nobody was going to ask the tough question. And if they did, they got shut down. Okay, you weren't going to get, he wasn't going to answer that question. Why didn't anyone ask that question? I mean, if you're going to be on the air as much as Commissioner Sankey was on the air, you would think at some point a tough question might have come his way. It wasn't coming. I got no problem with Alabama getting in. Okay, I really don't. I do have a problem with how syrupy and how contrived this whole thing was as it related to stiffing a 13-0 team for the first time in the history of the playoff process. That a team could drop exponentially as far, almost as far, well, as far, okay, as a 13-0 Florida State team did. Only the TCU drop in 2014 was close. They dropped from 3-6, and another pure playoff privilege team, Ohio State, jumped in after walloping Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. Pure playoff privilege. And 9 games versus 8 games. See, they know what the data is. And one of the reasons why, when you think about the circumstances surrounding what Commissioner Slive had in mind when they stated 8 games was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The metrics are all in our favor. Let's just play 8 games. Okay, because our conference is so much more powerful and the metrics are so much more on our side, it won't matter what the other conferences do. If you play through the ACC, your metrics are going to show your strength of schedule being what it is. So what Florida State did against 13th ranked LSU, a top 15 team, in a non-conference game they did not play. I know you felt this way, Jake. I certainly said it. That game was insurance for Florida State, that they knew when they won that game, if LSU finished in the top 15, they should be good. They shouldn't have to worry. They would be in the college football playoff, or contraire. No. You're not one of the pure playoff privilege. Florida State, there was a time when, with Bobby Bowden, that you were in college football's elite. You were away from it for too long. You now are no different than TCU, who, by the way, was really no different when we look back on it than Cincinnati, because St. Saban wasted no time last year after TCU was buried in the final by Georgia, talking about how, I think we probably should have been in. Oh, wait a minute. Did we just forget that TCU beat Michigan? Apparently we did. College football is about matchups, so there was a blowout. Blowouts happen. But we were going to hang that on TCU, and we were going to hang that also on whoever was going to be the next TCU, who in effect was the next Cincinnati. We treated a so-called Power 5 team, we being college football fellas, like a group of 5 team. We condescendingly looked down our noses and said, you don't belong. And then in the aftermath of it all, once it came down, I'm watching the quartet in the studio there. Only Booger McFarland would speak real truth.
Yeah.
And he spends more time covering the NFL than the other guys. Everyone else is giving the company line, the marching orders, just as it should be. And God forbid anybody come after Kirk Herbstreit and challenge him on anything. Kirk's amazing to me. I have the greatest respect for him as a broadcaster. He does a hell of a job calling games. No one works harder going from place to place, now wearing all the hats that he's wearing. But he's got a level of sensitivity that is he puts out a tweet shortly thereafter. He looked like he was so sad that Florida State didn't get in. And it was just, I don't know who worked with him on that sensitivity training, but boy, oh boy, it worked. See, I'm going to say what I see, and I'm not going to worry about what the fans or the players or coaches think. Spencer and I have a little something we call creative tension. Okay? We're not always going to agree. I mean, and we don't. There are times when Tillman and I really don't agree. But I think it makes for good TV when people don't agree, as long as they are debating about it in a civil manner and they go about their business making their points and then move on. It was as if none of those guys, okay, other than Booger, was going to point out that, wait a minute, this is a travesty. What we've done here is absolutely, this is one of the saddest days in college football.
Yeah.
He was the only one that made any statement like that. And again, I go back to these metrics. They know, the commissioner knows, because of the strength of his conference, what that so-called analytics thing is going to point out. That strength of schedule on Alabama is greater than that of Florida State, regardless of that Florida State game against LSU that you, Jake, thought was insurance, but really wasn't, because it was Florida State, not one of the pure playoff privileged. Not Alabama, not Georgia, not Ohio State. I could go on and on. Mm-hmm. And as long as this system was in place, it was going to screw itself. And I think it's fitting in the final year of of the college football playoff that a team gets a screw job quite like this.
Yeah.
Because those kids at Florida State got absolutely screwed, and none of the pundits, with the exception of Booger McFarland on the air yesterday, was able to at least speak some truth to them while they were hanging their heads. And I do not blame Mike Norvell for stiffing them at all.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point was he going to come on and say anything that was not going to make him look even worse? And he knew that, and he was wise to not come on.
Yeah. Well, the only other person I saw push back against it was Dan Mullen, and I think he's about to be off to be a head coach here soon. So I don't know how many strings he has tied left there, but I saw guys I have a lot of respect for, including a former quarterback at Alabama who works for ESPN 4 days ago. And we'll play the clip for you tomorrow just to show you how this works. 4 days ago, coming out and saying, for the sanctity of the sport, Florida State needs to get in. It's only right. And then 4 days go by. And yesterday on the selection show, he's sitting up there in the booth talking about how Alabama's, it's just right that they're in. Somebody got the memo. I get it. I'm not an idiot, right? They're in the business of making money, but I couldn't do that, Timmy B. I can't play both sides of it like some of these cats can. I can't sit here and be like, cry me just crocodile tears for Florida State, but Alabama, here we go. I can't. Like you, I'm going to tell you what I think, and good, bad, or indifferent, I'm gonna go with what I believe. But you saw so many people flip-flop and then just lay down. Just lay down like a good dog. That's a good dog. Say what we want to say. It's sad. Here, go hit the doggy door. Go outside. Go to the bathroom outside, then come back in. Let me put some more water in your dish. Yeah. It's a joke.
It is. And you know, I go back to this. Creative tension is a good thing. It makes for good TV. Spontaneity. Okay. Say some surprising things. That's why the TNT show is so good. Mm-hmm. You know, with Charles and Ernie and those guys, because you don't know what's going to be said. I don't even think they know what's going to be said. I guarantee you that thing was completely rehearsed over and over and over again. Yeah. And everyone was
best place since Rent.
Yeah. The bottom line, that's great. That was a good one. Bino used My Fair Lady. Rent. Very good.
Thank you. Bino.
Bottom line. And by the way, couldn't we have used Bino yesterday?
Oh man, it would have been great.
He would have just unvarnished truth and would have made everyone on that set uncomfortable. At one point, when you're doing 4 hours, and that's another thing for Reese Davis, when you're doing 4 hours, at some point, your guys are going to go in a different direction and off script. And once they did, he said, we talked about this in the meeting. This is the only time I get upset. It's not about the competition. I'm like, oh, boy, there's a little truth serum coming out of the host. But it is just, I've been in the business too long not to know what's going on here. Herbie has now gotten so powerful that no one will disagree with him on the set, with the exception of Booger, who, by the way, was the only guy that left the set. I'm hoping it was because he had NFL duties. He had to get ready for an NFL show. And they put RG3 in. I waited throughout the entire show to see if they would get Norvell, and they didn't. And, you know, bravo, good for him. I'm glad he chose not to come on, and he put out a statement instead. I wouldn't have given them the time of day either. I wouldn't have. Because that was so contrived and so, and whether you like it or not, it was mean-spirited. And I think that's why, if you haven't seen the video that Kirk put out, and by the way, like I said, I respect him. I do think he does a great job. But when you carry the mantle of the most influential broadcaster in the sport, which he does, and he was anointed by them. With that comes some responsibility to say what you see, and don't get syrupy with me and then apologize after the fact by looking all sad sack, telling me how badly you hurt for those kids. Just say what the hell you need to say and move on. That's the real world we live in.
Tim, what's most important to me is logical consistency in matters like this. Now, there's a couple things I think. The matchup with Michigan and Alabama now is going to be more compelling than the matchup with Florida State and a backup quarterback. Something else, I think most people can get on board with the idea that this team is not as competitive when their star player goes down. Most people can get on board with that. Where a lot of people like myself start to have issue is this would never happen if the roles were reversed. If you had an undefeated Alabama team, I don't care if their entire starting unit was ineligible for the playoffs. They would get in, and I would be saying the same thing I'm saying. I would say they deserve to be in over a one-loss Florida State team who played a difficult schedule or whatever the comparison might be. When we go to the 12-team playoff, you've been our shining light here talking about the 12-team playoff and how it'll probably be 16-team in the next 24 months. When we go to that, is that going to solve the issue? Not just because there's more teams. I really don't care how many teams there are. It's the selection mechanism to me, right? Like, is that going to help when we have automatic qualifiers and wild cards more like in NFL or Major League Baseball?
Well, yeah, it's going to help. But this is proof that they got to blow up what their thinking is relative to how you go about it. Okay, it's this whole metrics thing that is in play, that the SEC really only needs to play its own schedule to be strong enough to fight off an undefeated conference champion. That's got to stop. That's got to stop. Now, a conference champion will get in next year. That we know that. But will it come into play with the other conversation? Sure it will, unless they take a look at it moving forward, okay? But this is, again, let's not lose sight of this, all right? We're not talking about a one-loss Florida State. We're talking about a 0.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about 13-0.
Yeah.
All right? And we're talking about how much of a layoff between now and the games for the kid, the second teamer, to come through concussion protocol, right? Mm-hmm. So Florida State will be without Travis, yes. But can you win with a backup quarterback? Can it be done? Of course it can be done. Mm-hmm. Listen, fans, and I think everyone that is involved in college football or that wants to be involved, at least in the postseason, they really get annoyed when it becomes evident that the guys on the screen, okay, have that much influence over the games that you see at home.
Yeah.
And because Florida State makes for a, quote, poorer matchup, okay, in a 1-4 game against Michigan than Alabama. Okay, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have to see that game, that it's not right for Florida State to be playing that game. Broadcasters I don't have the right to determine who Fox puts me on a game with. And if they tell me that I'm going to go do this game, I got to go and do the game. What do I like some matchups over others? Sure I do. When you're sitting in the lead chair, as Herbie does, and at our place Joel Klatt does, yeah, you're going to have a voice within the offices there, in those walls, and you're going to have a chance to say, gosh, I really think we ought to do this, and maybe somebody will listen. Okay, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But by and large, America doesn't want to believe that the broadcaster has that much influence. Okay, and that's what happens when you see that kind of charade played out on national television, and that's what it was. It was, without question, Alabama, this went on for weeks. This was set up over weeks. And then during the week, the commissioner of the conference made all the rounds. It was like going through the car wash of management at ESPN. He was hitting every spot. And that's his job. Okay, that's Greg Sankey's job. So I'm not going to be as critical of the commissioner.
I don't blame him for politicking. I'd be trying to get Ole Miss in, too.
Absolutely. That's his job. And by the way, Tony Petitti and Jim Phillips and all the other commissioners, Brett Yormark, I think, gets it. He's pretty media savvy. This is what you do. Okay, you got to do it. He's got his own network now, and he can go on whenever he wants. Good for him.
Yeah.
But I think when fans are watching broadcasters, the people that are out there saying what they see and talking about the game, there is a responsibility that comes with the influence we carry. And to me, sometimes that influence can go over the top. And in this case, I thought it did. And I think creative tension is a wonderful thing. And I would have loved to have seen a few more people. You're right about Greg McElroy. I'd seen what he'd said, and I'm very high on Greg.
I got a lot of respect for Greg. I can't believe he flipped back and forth like that.
Listen, he knows who the big cheese is. He's sitting next to him. Okay. Yeah. It happened.
But he's rich. Didn't his dad invent unleaded oil or something like that? Or he's fine either way. It's like being Arthur Smith,
it was the
head coach of the Falcons. Didn't your dad start FedEx? I'd go for every fourth down. Hell, we'd go for it all. I'd be like Dan Lanning on steroids. You kidding?
Blake's got some good stuff to say on this.
Well, yeah,
I think Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy are the best broadcast team that they got.
Greg knows ball. I mean, one of the best. I agree with that. I got a lot of respect for Greg.
But the bottom line is, fans just want to know that we're going to say what we see.
Yeah,
we're going to say what we see, and if it pisses some people off, so be it. That's the job we have.
Yeah,
that's right. So I would have loved to have seen a few more people besides Booger as the only ones that threw shade towards this narrative that was allowed to be played out in such a manner, because it was a narrative all weekend long. I was doing basketball. All right. I had a basketball game in Wisconsin, and I was done with my homework, got home in time to watch the shows around and before game day. And then I watched game day because I was getting ready for an 11:30 tip. So I got up extra early, had some breakfast, and I watched it all. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, my God, that was an infomercial for the SEC that they were doing. I mean, it was an absolute infomercial. And, allowing that kind of time. And it was, listen, fans may not have cared or been able to read between the lines, but the committee, that's all they cared about. That was certainly all Greg Sankey cared about. And he was speaking directly to them when he was talking about that in the wake of that show, in the way the show was formatted. And to me, it was just, somebody questioned the commissioner on, hey, you only played 8 games. Back in the spring in Destin, you kind of flipped the script. You thought you had everybody thinking you were going to play 9. Is there any reason why? He could have easily said, well, why would we do that? Alabama already has a strength of schedule of 55, and that's better than Florida State's. We don't have to worry about that. He could have at least answered the question. Okay. When the metrics are always on your side, you can get away with it. Those FCS games that we pine about in late November, okay, that are played, they don't mean a damn thing. The SEC still gets away with it. They've gotten away with it from the beginning, and they're still getting away with it today.
Well, I want to say this as a point that you brought up. If Michael Penix went down for Washington, or J.J. McCarthy went down for Michigan, I think they would get evaluated the same way if the roles were reversed and Florida State beat a number 1 team with a 1 loss in the ACC championship.
I think you might be right, but not Alabama or Georgia.
I think they would. I think Alabama would too. I think Georgia would as well.
You think they would keep Alabama?
I think they would get evaluated the same. I think they would get evaluated the same if their backup quarterback came and played the same.
You think they would keep an undefeated SEC team out that's coached?
I think they would evaluate the team if they played like that. Yeah, I truly believe.
I don't think there's a chance.
I don't think they wouldn't. They would do it against Michigan. Huge brand. They do it against Washington, huge brand. But if Bama and Georgia did it, they wouldn't do it.
I don't know. I still think Michigan would have gotten in. Michigan undefeated.
Hey,
Tim, what do you think?
Do you guys notice how many times the question comes to Boo Corrigan? Poor Boo. Replacing Bill Hancock is a very difficult thing. I think it's also important that Bill Hancock go out on such a controversial college football playoff. Oh, my God. The man that wouldn't allow us to say playoff for all those years during the BCS. But the question always comes up, do the coaches in that room have everyone's attention? Every year they ask that question. Huh? How many coaches are there really? Yeah. Versus how many administrators are there really?
Nick Saban's on ESPN every week. He's on the show. You gonna tell me they're gonna evaluate them the same? Are you kidding me? They're trying to get Nick Saban to go to ESPN.
But that's the problem.
Yeah, I really feel sad though for Feinbaum because he doesn't have the 7 figures to pay Nick that McAfee does to go on the show.
But the Saban dynasty was dead, according to Feinbaum.
But the fact that we're even having that conversation, that you're asking that question, like would they evaluate this team the same or that team the same, or what's the 4 best versus the 4 deserving, or who would Vegas favor? Yeah. It all speaks to a flaw in the mechanism as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, the big dog, whoever gets you paid the most, you're going to give them the most love, right? If I'm a paper company and whoever my biggest client is giving me the most paper, their first salesman goes down, they're still getting in, David. They're still getting in. Dunder Mifflin. The Michael Scott Paper Company.
Yeah. Underdog of our time.
Listen, I could have been, very easily, I could have been watching a Fox show, all right, rather than an ESPN show. And the guys might have said the same thing. In fact, I think they probably all did agree that Alabama should be the 4th team. And that's fine. Okay, but somebody offer up a legitimate argument that Florida State has truly been wronged here. No one did that. No one. And Booger, to his point, he was steadfast with it, but he wasn't going to get out of, he wasn't going to vilify his teammates on the set. He was just making a point that no one else was going to make. So it stood out. I think that fans don't like contrived television. And that's my critique here. Okay. Is I thought it was contrived. And I thought that it was painfully obvious that Herbie is the man and no one's going to challenge him when it comes down to it. And just because you're doing the best game every week on the biggest behemoth network doesn't mean you're always correct or that you shouldn't be challenged. Yeah. And when he got the pushback, obviously on social media, he felt that it was necessary to put out an impassioned response talking about how sorry and sympathetic he was to those Florida State kids. I just, to me, I was like, let me wipe the syrup off my iPad after watching it.
Yeah. I just hope it was log cabin, because that's the bit that or
it came up a little short for me.
Yeah. Well, Timmy B, you never come up short for us, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. It's basketball season. We're going to make sure to be checking in with you to see how that's going. Obviously, the transfer portal open. It's just absolutely nuts right now, my friend. Tell everybody where they can find you next.
Villanova and UCLA on Saturday night in prime time.
It's a good matchup.
So basketball's coming. It's here. Fox. It's here.
It is here. Yeah, the games are always they're always good, and they're always great matchups. And I said it before, I'll say it again. The most refreshing thing about college basketball is they get the end right.
That's
college
exactly
football
right.
Still doesn't, and hopefully next year we'll get closer. And again, I really do believe that what we witnessed is another example of why we need more than one carrier of college football creating the narratives that are out there, because college football deserves better.
Definitely. Well, Timmy B, thanks.
Thank you, buddy.
We always love having you on, my friend, and enjoy the rest of your day. Tim Brando, one of the best in the business, always going to tell you what he thinks. We're getting to calls in 1 second. I know you guys have been holding, but speaking of best in the business, when it comes to skincare, Genucel is the best in the business, regardless if you're male or female. Now, we all know the holidays can be hectic: shopping, cooking, never-ending list of things to do, but fear not, because we have a gift that's not just thoughtful, it's downright transformative. That's the gift of Genucel Skincare, and their most popular package has a special discount just for our listeners at Genucel.com/booster. That's GENUCEL.com/booster. Treat yourself and your loved ones to the absolute best skincare in the world. There's a reason our skin is unbelievably silky, smooth, and delicious. If you got forehead wrinkles, fine lines, skin redness, yes, even a sagging jawline, they'll make you look like a superhero in minutes. It'll disappear right in front of your eyes with their most popular collection. So go to Genucel.com/booster to get this incredible holiday discount. Every order today is instantly upgraded to free express shipping. That's Genucel.com/booster. They made Christmas come early this year. They sent us down a ton of products for the entire office, and everybody loves it, including Justine, who absolutely is super duper in love with it. Isn't that right, PJ?
Yep.
Yup. All right, let's get to the phone calls.
All right, let's start with Chris in Michigan. Chris, how you doing today?
And if you're on hold, call in.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's
Good,
up?
man.
All right. First, David, go blue, back-to-back-to-back Big Ten champs.
Go blue,
right?
buddy.
Man,
It's
must be
incredible.
nice.
One
Yep.
seed. All right. For obviously what I want to talk about, Michigan drew their 1 seed, and then they drew Bama.
Yeah.
So,
Embrace it.
exactly. And a lot of people want to, roast Michigan on that video, but what I had to say about that is when Michigan drew Bama, I know they did what 90% of every household did and reacted that way because they saw an undefeated FSU left out.
It's exactly what I said earlier in the show. Yeah.
Wasn't because they're scared to face Bama. It's because the reaction of seeing an undefeated team, Power 5 team, get left out.
It's all right, Chris. Hey, it's okay. We'll find out soon enough, buddy.
Well, I feel like 65%.
What I wanted to say is that for right now, I mean, Bama is celebrating because they think they got an easy win against Michigan. But what's the narrative going to be if Michigan finally gets their first playoff win against Nick Saban Bama? What are Bama fans going to do in that scenario? Because last year Michigan overlooked TCU. That's exactly what happened. And then the year before, after Georgia lost to Bama, they rolled in the playoffs. But Michigan has an opportunity as the 1 seed to finally make their first playoff win. If they get their first playoff win against Bama, I mean, how's that going to look for Bama fans who are celebrating an easy win for some reason?
Look, it's a tall task.
I don't know. What about this is an easy win?
Well,
You're the number one ranked team in the nation.
No,
this ain't going to be.
Here's what I'll say, Chris. Here's what I'll say. I'm telling you from personal experience.
Fans are celebrating a playoff win right now.
The fans may be celebrating. You may be right, but the fans are not practicing for this game. That guy over there, Nick Saban, is the ultimate dark arts master manipulator. All right, he taught it to Kirby.
I'm not saying,
here's what I think. The fans can overlook Michigan all they want. What matters is will the Alabama team overlook Michigan? Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, I think it's hell. I think it's a pick 'em. Well, I think that's why it's 1.5. I think it's 1.5. But all that matters is that Nick Saban, that coaching staff and those players don't overlook him. What I'm interested to see, and what I think is going to be the most pivotal aspect of the game, is can Michigan line up and control the line of scrimmage against? I think Michigan can stop Alabama's run. Mm-hmm. I think they can do that. We've seen multiple teams do that. The question is, can Michigan run the ball successfully against Alabama?
Yeah, I agree. And I think also with that, JJ needs to play an incredible game. They need to do a lot of QB runs with JJ. One thing I'm worried – so the thing about the whole TCU last year is Michigan got killed when Max Duggan ran, and he was also a really good passer. This year, Jalen Milroe, his running definitely makes me nervous, but he's not as good of a passer as Max Duggan.
No, I agree with that.
So that's the only thing that I think Michigan has a little bit of an upper edge. I don't know if they're going to be able to run up the middle with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards as well as they've been doing against Bama. I doubt it, but yeah, I completely agree with you.
Well, Chris, I'll end it like this. Look, it's going to be a tall task, as it is any time you face off against Alabama, right? Michigan's been on both sides of this. They got the toughest draw 2 years ago against Georgia. They got blown out. They got the easiest draw last year against TCU. They lost the football game. It doesn't matter. If you think you're as good as we've been told that Michigan is, go beat anyone that's in front of you. And I think that they should embrace this challenge. Both teams have a chip on their shoulder. Alabama thinks the entire country doesn't want them in. They want to go win the national championship to prove everyone wrong. Michigan's played half their games this season without their head coach over what they see as a witch hunt of NCAA investigation. So I can't wait for it.
Yeah. Chris, we'll see, buddy.
Great call, Chris. Good luck,
man.
Go
blue, buddy.
Go blue.
Yes, sir. Feels good, man. Let's go to Ben in Missouri. Ben, how you doing?
Hey, is this the place I'd call to get a ride to the Air Force?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Well, we also sell bail bonds.
And bail bonds.
We could do that,
Also
too.
sell bail bonds.
That movie, I watched it on Saturday. It was hilarious. It was
Thank you, man. We had a ton of fun making it. I hope they let us do it again. Did so well. I'd be shocked if they didn't.
That was totally worth the lack of live shows. Hey, I was wanting to call. Of course, it's probably been belabored, to all heck, but of course this has been a travesty to Florida State and college football as a whole. And I think ESPN is sitting here and they're probably ruining college football. I mean, I know they are. Because I don't care what the matchup is, just to people are comparing it to my Broncos, right? When they during the COVID year when we didn't have any quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we played the Saints and got blown out at home, and people were saying that the game should not have been played because we didn't have a viable product to put on the field. But at the same time, you have a game to play.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, my thing is, like, what is the definition? To me, a team isn't just who has the best players out there. A team is a group of guys that are able to overcome adversity. What the amount of how impressive Florida State's defense was. And not just take the Florida game out of it, going against Max Brown, who's now in the transfer portal from Florida, but against Louisville, knowing that your offense could not score and being able to stop a Louisville team that has shown the ability to be explosive. To me, that speaks more to a team than anything. They did what they had to do, and they weren't rewarded for it. And listen, I'm all for it. Life isn't fair. It's not fair. But there are times in life where you get cheated, and I think Florida State got cheated out of an opportunity.
Yeah, they totally did. And I Kirk and I love Timmy Brando. He was on point the entire time that I was listening in. But and I know he works for the rival network, but at the same time, I mean, you just got to call a spade on this stuff. They have gotten way too much influence. And like he said, I was watching the TV yesterday, and I knew I was looking at those guys on the set. And I mean, Booger McFarland, of all people, the guy who covers the NFL, is the only guy speaking truth. And they have gotten so much power in terms of determining what you see and what the official
they run it. They run it, but they want to run it because when they run it, they can control the money, right? They can make sure that it gives them the best opportunity to make the most money. Control is power. Control is profitable. And ESPN has control. It's the same reason they ran a smear campaign against Michigan the whole year.
Yeah, the only reason ESPN is still around is because they have any sort of live sports. I mean, if they didn't have
they're disappearing though. Look at them. They're just slowly disappearing. Just slowly. Just let it go. Just watch Disney. Just let it keep going. Just keep watching it.
I hope so. I hope so. I think live sports is going to keep them around for longer than they otherwise would be, but hopefully they'll be out of here soon.
Yep. Well, Ben, thanks, buddy.
Good call, Benny.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
we'll give you a ride to the airport.
Hunter in Arkansas. Again, you sell bail bonds. Yeah. Hunter in Arkansas, what's up?
What's up, boys?
What up?
What's up? How you doing, man?
It's going to make me sound like an SEC homer. I kind of hate it because I'm supporting Bama. But I feel like the committee got it right.
Okay.
That's not
I think if you feel like the committee got it right, that is defined by the prism you view who should be playing in the playoff,
or
right?
That you could say they did their job.
They did,
right? Like that's
to their criteria. They did their job.
That's how I feel about it.
Right. That's what
I just hate. I hate their criteria.
Yeah. See, and that's understandable. I get it. But to their criteria, they did their job.
So there's only one piece of criteria that matters. Then, see, you can't say. That's what you're
really
saying.
Is like,
that's what you're saying.
With the four best teams. Like that's the worst phrase in sports.
So the worst,
and it's subjective,
but that's their job.
Criteria means multiple things.
I know.
It does not mean it. If it would say in the criteria, conference champion matters, strength of schedule matters, this, star asterisk, but the thing that matters the most, the trump card, is that if somebody's hurt. That's not what it says. That is one factor if you're going to make the whole criteria about the health of a quarterback on a team, then say it that wipes everything else away. You can't just put one thing in there and say all these are even when we look at all of them and then all of a sudden go, whoa, Leo DiCaprio, from wherever we just point at, this is the one that matters the most. Don't say criteria. That's not the right word. Rule. The word is rule. That's it. Because there's one rule that overtakes all this. Not criteria. Stop saying that word.
Well, you know what's not in the criteria is that the order of the metrics they're using and the importance, right? Like they don't say, oh, well, it's record first, and then we go to strength.
So what would you think then if that's the case? That they're all what? They're all equally weighed, right? They're all equally weighed.
It's not, no, what I see is we can pick and choose and use these however we want to put the four teams we want in. That's my problem.
Then to me, it's not a criteria.
Well, that's why I said I led with it's not a serious sport.
I agree.
But Hunter, I mean, look, you make a great point, and this is what Blaine was talking about yesterday and today. Like the playoffs are probably more compelling because of the decision they made, and I don't blame the committee in this situation. I blame the selection mechanism.
I think TCU is the reason why this committee acted the way it did this year. The national championship, them getting blown out, I don't think they wanted to see anybody get blown out.
Well, like how? But again, how do you know that? Why does everybody forget TCU beat Michigan?
They did, and Michigan may have gotten beaten as bad.
I watched Georgia beat Michigan to death 2 years ago. In that first, that wasn't even close. Yeah. That was a blowout that just didn't have a 65 in front of it. But people glossed over the fact that TCU won the semifinal game. You don't know. That's the thing.
Maybe we're all just glossing over the fact that this actually, all of this heated argument today is good for college football, because what I've said from the start of the 14 playoff, we've never seen a situation where even 3 teams could win the national championship. It always is they have to plug that 4th team in, whether it be Cincinnati or a TCU that lost their conference. Now we're talking about, I mean, look, we haven't even talked about the Buckeyes in Columbus. They have a legitimate argument to make. They could be in Georgia was the most unbeatable team all year. They lose by 3 in the conference championship.
Florida State's better than them though, David.
Yeah,
they're ranked ahead of them. Florida State's better than both those teams.
Ultimately, all of this is good for college football and should catapult us into a 12-team playoff.
Well, I just hope this is the new normal, not the exception.
It's going to be funny how quick this goes when Alabama wins against Michigan and Georgia rolls Florida
Wins
State.
the championship.
That'll be out the window.
The Georgia-Florida State one, I think, is still going to be weird because you may have all sorts of opt-outs on either side. Like, again, that speaks to a problem that we have in our sport when it's not the playoff. But the Alabama-Michigan one is completely fair.
Well, the playoff committee opted Florida State out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear anybody that agrees with this. I don't hear anything about opt-outs. I don't want to hear a word about opt-outs.
Well, who do you think wins it all, Hunter, before you head out?
Washington.
Wow, some Washington love.
I'm telling you, it wouldn't be a bad idea to sprinkle a little bit on there.
Hey, thanks for calling in, man. Call in as bowl season approaches.
Oregon was a 10-point favorite.
All right, let's go to Michael in Texas. Michael, how you doing?
Morning, guys. How are y'all doing?
Doing
what
great,
is up?
man.
Doing good. I would just want to say, you talked about how Michigan, made the playoff twice, got the hard draw, then the easy draw. That's, one of the reasons why a lot of our players, the seniors, came back for one more run because they think they can do it all. So they've been in both. They've been in both situations, and I think I know you talk about X's and O's, and we talk about how Alabama's players match up against ours, but I think the experience could potentially be a factor.
It's
as
huge.
far as how that's going to play out.
The unteachable intangible.
Yeah, those two teams spend so much energy trying to beat the Buckeyes.
It's so. Can I just say,
they did it. Now they'll focus on the playoffs.
It's so glad to hear you say this, because the whole year when everybody was doubting Michigan, saying we don't know, we were the only ones who were like, we do know. I've watched the same core of players play for 2 years. There's more questions about Georgia than there is about Michigan. I know who J.J. McCarthy is. I know who 80% of their offensive line is. I know who their skill position guys are. I know who 70% of their defense is, because I've watched them play for the past 2.5 years. Like, it just, now all of a sudden people, not you, Michael, they're like, well, Michigan's got all this great, valuable playoff experience. That was amazing when y'all were saying they didn't play anybody and nobody knew how good they were. That's the part that surprises me. You'll hear that. Just listen hard enough.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not going to listen to people like, Paul Palpatine on ESPN and what he has to say, because, his opinion on Michigan was already made pretty clear years ago. So I'm not going to really give him the time of day. But, sorry, give me a second, guys. But I will say one more thing. Jalen Moreau, I think Chris was mentioning him earlier. As good as he is running, I think with the month preparation, I think he is going to develop on his passing a little bit. I think that's going to I think that might surprise Michigan a little bit, because if they he's a running quarterback, QB runs, things like that, they can probably come out and throw backwards.
Yeah, he can sling it. He can sling it.
Well, that's something.
Yeah.
That's something I'll say we just have to probably keep an eye out for, because, we already know what we think he is, but then, they could come out and do something a little bit different.
That's true, but to me, I'll make Jalen Moreau beat me from the pocket. You're going to beat me, you're going to beat me from the pocket.
And he showed he can.
But when's Bama their most dangerous?
For sure.
When he's out there improvising, that's just...
would you want to get your arm cut off or die by 1,000 cuts when it comes to this Bama offense? Jalen Moreau right now is, playing some of the best football in college. I have yet to see someone actually be able to get this man on the ground.
Correct.
So if you're Michigan, how do you play this defensively? You bring 4, you stay in your lane. If you rush past Jalen Milroe, you are done.
He's gone. And it starts on offense. Can you have sustained drives that control the clock to where you keep him on the sideline?
Well, that's who Michigan is. At least you're playing.
Typically, they are.
I tell you who Florida State fans ought to be the most pissed at is Auburn. That's who I'd be the most pissed at. Auburn blew it for everybody involved.
Well, then Georgia would have probably gotten in.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I was really glad at the same time.
No, I don't know.
I'm one of those people that, I was one of those people that would say, you know what? I know people say, oh, we're scared of Bama. You know what? Saban and Bama have been the standard of college football for years. You know what? If you want to make yourself the new standard, as Rick Flair would say, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best.
Thank you, Michael.
Exactly. I'm ready for it. It's going to be I think it's going to be an excellent game.
Embrace the challenge. Thank you, Michael. All right, tomorrow I want to hear from Gavin in Pennsylvania and Steve in Ohio and everybody else on the line. Y'all call back in tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll get to calls earlier tomorrow. We had to get Timmy B's thoughts on that, though. It's always great to get those words from Timmy B. All right. You want to go to donos before we go to bets?
We'll go to bets and we'll go to donos.
All right. Well, I'm still waiting on the markers back
order.
They're on back order.
Supply chain.
They're on back order. Supply chain issue. Nobody knew what a supply chain was before.
We know now.
Yeah, we do, especially with these markers. Here's what I got tonight.
It's the one, the turnover.
The chain with a supply.
Godly. Do I want to bet this Bengals-Jaguars game? God.
Yes.
Let's all bet the Jamar Chase under today. Let's all bet the Jamar Chase under.
How are you?
Fantasy matchup?
Right
Somehow, Deebo Samuel, you are a blessing. You're an absolute blessing.
He was skating.
35 yesterday.
35?
The only reason I'm in this, I'm up 12. And he has Jamar Chase today. In a PPR fantasy.
You're up 12.
I'm up 12.
And you got nobody left.
Nobody left. Jamar Chase is
So you got to come watch it in my house is what you're saying.
Obviously.
After what A.J. Brown did for you at the end. All right, here's what I got. Give me Christian Kirk anytime touchdown tonight. That's at plus 160. And then you know what? Give me the over at 40, minus 112. I don't want to sit here and just root for the under.
All right, well, I was on a roll, back-to-back champs, and then I think I went 0-6 yesterday, so you take these with a grain of salt. Bengals, Jags, over 40, minus 112, and then I'm going to take Alabama basketball, minus 25, and that's minus 110. They're playing Arkansas State, even though I really shouldn't be picking anything Alabama this whole month, but it's house divided.
Hey, by the way, how is that? I forgot about that. And
it's not just like for a week, you play them next week.
Darby lose Bama. How are y'all going to watch that game?
Oh, no, we lost.
House divided for all of Christmas.
Are you going to come over to my house to watch that game?
We lost, but we won.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to do something.
Can y'all watch that game together?
We'll find out.
I'm telling you, it's weird. I don't like watching the Iron Bowl with Reed. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Because it makes me see her in a different light.
See?
Cool. Sweet conversations. All right, give me Travis Etienne, ATT. That's anytime touchdown. That's going off at minus 130. And then I'm taking Jamar Chase over 57.5 receiving yards, minus 113. It's a win-win-win-lose-win situation.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bet $1,000 on Alabama money line to win the game. After I see who else playing, injuries.
I don't think that's a bad bet.
$1,000 Alabama money line, one way or another. I'm going to be thrilled.
You're B-Lo. You break cage.
You get this.
And you get this. All right, let's get some donation. Chad Smith, the man with the most normal name ever with the $5 donation. Chad, thank you, brother. People arguing FSU should be out of it because it's the 4 best are the same people who would pick GA over Washington if the fate of the world depended on it.
Yeah, Georgia would probably be favored on a neutral site. Why aren't they playing instead of Washington? It's the Pac-12. There's going to be no Pac-12 anymore. There's no after this. See ya.
All right, let's go to Austin Hatch. What's up, Austin? $5 donation. Appreciate it, brother. Don't agree with leaving FSU out, but if Bama wins the whole thing, will it quiet this conversation?
Sure.
A little bit.
Oh,
yeah,
well, the entire thing.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, what happens if Bama gets blown out by Michigan?
That won't happen.
No, I'm just telling you. What happens, though?
Bama and getting blown out in the same sentence. Wow.
I mean, they lost by double digits at home to Texas.
Let's use that game plan.
Yeah.
Let's mimic that.
All of a sudden, Texas just shows up with Jim Harbaugh. He's like, hey, I got an idea.
I said to JT Brown with the $10 donation. JT, appreciate it, brother. After this year, Dabo Swinney has been proven 100% correct. Don't dump your culture to win ball games, especially since winning doesn't matter in the ACC, apparently.
I wonder what Dabo's thinking. I bet he's just sitting down drinking like a... I just see Dabo sitting on a front porch, like drinking a glass of like lemonade, like an old Southern thing.
I just think Dabo spends half his days just running down hills.
practicing,
running down the
run out.
And then he gets helicopter lifted to the top of the hill, so you have to go back.
What's Coach doing? No, he's just over there running downhill.
Like, he would love Egypt.
Yeah, let's go to Go Deeks 35 with a $5 donation. Appreciate it, brother. Greg Sankey and the NCAA are trying to bust up the ACC, and they just succeeded. Trust me, FSU and Clemson got the message loud and clear.
Oh, for sure.
I know it affects not even the conference, but it affects you recruiting.
For sure.
Like, if you're Florida State, like, you go undefeated and not get in, why the hell would I want to go?
Well, my thing is, like, and they were like, oh, these other ACC schools are going to be using this against Florida State. I was like, no, they're not. What? How can you use that? Like, yeah, in the conference we're all in, we don't get in if we go undefeated. Look at Florida State. What do you mean, North Carolina? You're in the same conference. If I'm an SEC coach, I am loading the mortars into the thing. Like, we're going to be shooting grenades all over the place.
Let's go to Brian Ward with a $10 donation. Brian, appreciate it, brother. Enough of this sham playoff system. Boise State won the Mount West Championship as their head coach and is going bowling in L.A. versus UCLA.
How about that?
I'm excited for this one. Hashtag bleed blue. Hashtag go Broncos. Hashtag let's hire Brian Harsin.
Yeah, look, Potato Man. You guys will be talking about.
I did hear, Brian Harsin might be getting a job at Mexico State.
Stop.
Saw it on Twitter.
Where's Jerry Kill going?
Saw it on Twitter. It was like not a head coaching job.
Oh.
Let's go to Jay Green with a $10 donation. Appreciate it, brother. The committee did their job. You cannot make a good faith argument for FSU getting in over Bama if you actually read and take all the criteria into account. It sucks for FSU, but life is not fair. Somebody call an ambulance. I added that last one.
This argument that read the criteria, there's stuff for Florida State that's in the criteria. Like, you just gloss over that. You just say it's redacted, right? It's like, oh, well, that doesn't count. But here's the one that counts. No.
If they played like this cupcake out of conference schedule and then played an ACC schedule, I wouldn't feel as bad. They went out of their way. They won against LSU neutral site at Florida. They beat Clemson on the road. They beat Miami. They beat a lot of.
They were undefeated against the top 25. Like, again, if your argument is that you can't make a good faith argument about Florida State, then your argument is not a good one. Go with the hurt quarterback when that's your only chance.
That's what I think too.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to Ryan with a $5 donation. Appreciate it, Ryan. I do believe the 4 best teams got in. However, very unfair to FSU. So let's call it what it is. It's not a playoff. It's an invitational. And it's not right.
Yeah, so is Georgia better than Washington, though? It's a good point.
I was seeing that all sorts of people putting their top 4 before the committee came out, and Georgia and Alabama were both in there. This was a lot of like the SEC network guys. And then the committee came out, and Georgia's left out, and they said the committee did the right thing. Well, how? If you thought the 2 SEC teams should get in and they only put 1, like how did they end up doing the right thing? That's why there's no consistency across the board.
There isn't, but how is Florida State? Y'all can explain to me how Florida State is in front of Ohio State and Georgia, but not good enough to be in front of Alabama. Somebody just hold my hand and walk me through Walmart and explain it to me like I'm 4.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to well done with a $2 donation. Don't you see anything next to it, buddy? But well done on the donation. I'll give you that. Let's go to Trey Bidenhammer. Zahama. With a $5 donation. I couldn't get through today. I have a lot to say. I'll try again tomorrow. UGA fans, don't worry. I haven't forgotten about.
Who was that?
Trey.
That's Trey Bidenhammer.
All right, Trey. Trey, call in tomorrow. We got Trey, Steve. We got a couple people we got to get to tomorrow.
So to Calvin Steber with the $2 donation. Calvin, appreciate it, brother. Army versus Navy means more. Go Navy. Beat Army. I just want both these teams to feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah. So make sure they're good.
We're focused on the right thing.
Yeah. Look, it is really just a game for you guys. Just keep protecting us.
So to Oscar Gomez with a $5 donation. Appreciate it, brother. Which bowl games are y'all excited about outside of the playoffs?
We're going to do we're going to preview some of the biggest bowl games. There's some great matchups. the opt-outs, we're going to see.
Each bowl.
Let's go to Q Smo Jimbo with a $2 donation. Request for David, Michigan. Please yell Badger.
Too soon.
Come on, Dave.
Too soon.
Give the people what
Badger!
I love it. Let's go to Zach with a $10 donation. Zach. Namaste. No rooting interest involved, but I hear a lot of talk about FSU as a good comparison to 14 Ohio State. Is it Bama a better comp of 2014 Ohio State? Ugly start to the season, but an incredible finish.
I mean, you can make some comps there. I think the comp is the situation about who got in. I think that's the comparison, not kind of them kind of overcoming adversity.
But we know the difference between that Ohio State team and this Florida State team. I mean, they beat Wisconsin 59-0 in the championship. They looked a lot different than what Florida State looks like right now.
I just feel like no matter what, Alabama, the SEC champ was getting in. So if Bodenhammer came in and was better than Jordan Travis, or if he never got hurt one way or another, Bama would have gotten in over Texas and they would have ignored the head-to-head. I think one way or another it was going to happen.
Let's go to CG87343, my man, with a $5 donation. I'm hearing people comping Washington and TCU when they made the playoffs. I find that unfair.
That is unfair.
Give me your thoughts.
Washington's undefeated. Beat Oregon twice, won the conference championship. TCU won 9 games by 1 score or something crazy like that, lost the conference championship, still got in. Washington deserves to be in, just like Florida State deserves to be in.
All right, let's go to Byron Davis with a $5 donation. Byron, thank you, sir. Just they need to make it a 2 super conferences this offseason. Otherwise, it'll be SEC and Big Ten tournament with ACC champ and Big 12 champ.
That's where we're heading. This just proves it even more.
All right, let's go to Ryan Gay with a $5 donation. Appreciate it, brother. When does FSU pull a UCF and declare themselves champions? Oh, we're champions.
No, I'm like the minute. Oh. No, y'all don't understand. The minute that A popped up on the screen for the 4, if I'm involved for it, we're national champions.
You don't think they need to beat Georgia first?
No,
do it now.
Do it now.
Do it now.
You got to beat Georgia first.
All right, let's go to CG87343 with another dono, $10 dono. If I'm not mistaken, the last time Michigan and Alabama played, Tom Brady was QB. Andrew Zhao was QB at Alabama.
Citrus
and Michigan won after Alabama botched an extra point that would have taken it to
I wish you were right, but that is false because I had to watch Michigan and Alabama play in a bowl game. The month after I got married with my wife, I actually sat next to Greg Byrne, the athletic director.
Really?
Yeah. And of course, Alabama won. Standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
Michigan was up at half. Mac Jones filled in on that game because Tua was hurt throughout the season.
McCorkle.
Before Mac Jones had his starting year in 2020 where they went undefeated and broke all sorts of records, he just launched it. First play was a touchdown.
Let's go to Michael Wallace with a $10 donation. The committee got it right. If SMU current quarterback played a full season, would they be close to being undefeated? No. Anybody that would have played them would have crushed them.
You mean like Louisville? You mean like 10-2 Louisville that beat Notre Dame? What about Florida, who beat Tennessee's ass? How about them? Last time I checked, the FSU was undefeated still, right? So they didn't lose. I don't know how we can sit here and say, oh, well, they would have never lost a game. I mean, I don't understand that, but okay. Do you?
All right, let's go to Maria and Angel with a $5 donation. Maria, thank you so much. I have my money on Texas winning the Natty and Texas being winner, Alabama being Zaluza.
I did have Texas versus Michigan in the Natty. I will say I did have Texas versus Michigan.
Chaz, Patrolist, so $2 donation. I don't see anything next to it, brother, but I really appreciate your donation. Another one from Maria with a $5. J-Boy,
yep.
You're not going to convince Nick, Steve, and Mike, etc. that regular season doesn't matter. The ACC versus SEC argument is also very weak.
Whoa, I'm confused. So, again, the ACC had a winning record against the ACC? The ACC had a winning record against the SEC this year.
SEC had the worst record against Power 5.
Yeah.
I think they were 5-7, something like that.
But, I mean, do you? I guess, whatever.
Okay, let's go to Gary with a $10 donation. What's up, Gary? Please explain to me how Texas deserves to be there. Don't give me this head-to-head crap. I don't know that was crap. That was the second game. We all know Bama would beat down on Texas now.
We all know it. We know it.
3 teams better.
We all knew that Oregon would do the same thing against Washington in the rematch, too.
Head-to-head. Look, you lost me at head-to-head doesn't matter. Like, I can't take anything you say serious.
We all know it. Man, I'll tell you what. Let me know what you know because I don't ever want to miss another bet.
Yeah.
That's what's shocking me.
You lost me at head-to-head at crap.
Let's go to 9 mil Norm with a $5 donation. Appreciate it, brother. Didn't Ohio State win a national championship with the third string in 2014?
He did. TCU made it to the Natty with a backup.
Let's go. Another one from Maria, $10 donation. Just because you got undefeated doesn't mean you're owed anything. If Alabama doesn't make that 4th and goal, they're out.
In the Power 5, it does mean something.
Kentucky, FSU argument.
In the Power 5, it does mean something. Again, that's the whole reason you have Power 5.
What other sport is that statement true?
Like, you can't, again, you're trying to mold it to make yourself feel better about the situation. You can't do that. You've got to look at it without bias. Just look at it on its face. Liberty should not have been in the playoff. They're a group of 5, right? They're basically playing in the lower division. I understand that. Stop comparing Liberty and Florida State. You go undefeated in the Power 5, you're in, just like Washington just did, right? Just like Michigan just did. There's only one other undefeated Power 5 team, and they didn't get in. Explain that.
Okay, let me get to these really quickly.
All right,
another one from Feeling Dangerous, $5 donation. The SEC stands are just mad that 2 SEC teams don't get in every year. All that being said, my Miami Redhawks heading to Orlando. Beating App State,
Big
boys.
Big one.
All right, poll real quick.
All right, let's get to the poll. Sorry if I didn't get your donation today. I'm getting called on not to, I don't have time to finish. Did the committee get it wrong?
I'm going to get it wrong. I'm going to say they say no 64%.
The committee get it wrong. I'll say no as well, but 63%.
Yes, 57%.
Wow.
No, 43%.
That's pretty tight.
That is pretty tight. All right, we appreciate it, you guys. Check out Lady Ballers if you haven't. Go to Daily Wire Plus. Biggest launch ever in the history of Daily Wire. 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, like and subscribe and grab that hoodie, too.
Grab that hoodie while you're at it. And, like the chances of Florida State making the playoff, we're going. Ooh! Gone.